Welcome to our fall convocation. On behalf of the University of Pikeville, thank you for joining us on this very special day. Allow me to recognize those who are assisting in today's ceremony. Dr. Philip Westgate, Associate Professor of Music, is our organist and a very accomplished musician. Big thank you to the University of Pikeville Concert Choir, directed by Janine Freeman, Assistant Professor of Music. The beautiful voices lift our hearts and our spirits. To my right on the stage is Colin McCoy, President of the Undergraduate Student Government Association. Thank you for delivering today's invocation. We wish Colin and all of our students the very best this year. And seated next to Colin is Rob Music, our campus chaplain, who will deliver the benediction. Chaplain Music's compassion and commitment has been a blessing to our campus family. Also on the platform are my wife, Judy Patton, First Lady of the University of Pikeville. Today's speaker, State Representative Leslie Combs, who will receive an honorary degree for her long-standing support of the university, and Dr. Thomas Hess, Vice President of Academic Affairs and Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, who will assist in the ceremony. And I want to take a moment to recognize a couple of special guests, Bill Owen and Jackie Owens, who worked with Leslie for many years and provided leadership to this institution for a decade or more. Welcome once more to our campus that you all helped build. And Hal Smith, another president that served us for over a decade, that worked with Leslie and did a lot to make this university what it is today. We're honored to have both of you. And I see a couple of members of the Board of Trustees. Bill Baird, I believe, is back there somewhere. And Alan Gilliam. Are there other members of the Board of Trustees present? Chairman Dodson is not able to be with us today, but we do depend on the guidance and leadership of the board to help us achieve the things that we're working on. Once again, we assemble to initiate another year of academic achievement. For 126 years, our predecessors have similarly celebrated a new term with new students, new hopes, new dreams. we're no different. The thrill of knowing that we are fundamentally and permanently changing the lives of so many young people is exhilarating and inspiring. We've gone through a period of tremendous growth. I'm pleased to have been a part of it. Nothing I've ever done has been more gratifying. I'm proud to be able to say today that we are the leading University of Central Appalachia, and we meet to celebrate that achievement and recommit ourselves to excellence in all that we do. We are united in a blessed endeavor. Now let us recommit ourselves to even greater heights in the future. Our fall convocation is normally a time when we celebrate our past and anticipate our future. Today is no different. Today we honor one of our own, State Representative Leslie Combs. The program contains a summary of Leslie's impressive career, but it doesn't fully articulate her service to the region and to the University of Pikeville. She served as the Chief Financial Officer and other positions at the then Pikeville College for 23 years. But her departure from the institution to devote her time and talents to public service did not end her life of service to the institution. She has made herself available to us every time we've called. And while those calls have been about several different subjects, most often and loudest call has been for the cause of state financial assistance to our students. Many people may not be aware of the amount of state assistance our students receive. Permit me to review for you some facts. For the just past completed 2014-2015 academic year, 809 undergraduate and 114 medical students received $5,826,000 in state grants and scholarships to help pay for tuition. Let me break that down for you just a little bit. First, the undergraduate program. Last year, 712 students received the Kentucky Tuition Grant, which was for $2,935. 566 students received the Kentucky Excellence in Education Scholarship, which averaged $1,700. 526 students received the College Assistance Program grant for $1,881. And to help our juniors and seniors pay for the last 2 years of the bachelor degree program, 178 students received a Kentucky Cole County College Completion Scholarship, which averaged $3,743. All these, when combined with federal grants and UPIKE scholarships, meant that 510 undergraduate students paid no tuition. And the remaining students who are Kentucky residents paid an average of only $4,175 out of pocket for tuition here at the University of Pikeville. In addition, to help our students become doctors, 116 Kentucky students in the Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine received a grant of cold severance tax money, which averaged $5,449. Kentucky has one of the most generous direct student aid programs in the nation, in large part due to the work of Representative Combs. And if you know anything about the battle for state funding, which occurs every 2 years in Frankfort, you know that somebody has to be fighting for every dollar. That somebody has been our state representative, Leslie Combs. Without these assistance for our students, our undergraduate program would not exist. While the struggle to preserve and enhance each of these programs goes on each session, the battle to enact the Kentucky Cole County college completion scholarship program was an epic struggle. The problem was not that it was not a good concept, which would help our children receive an economical bachelor's degree program here in the mountains. The problem was that it was too good, too logical, too much common sense. This was apple pie and ice cream. And everybody wanted to piggyback their pet legislative goals to Leslie's bill. In each of the past 3 legislative sessions, this bill was set for almost unanimous passage, but not until some other powerful legislator got their bill passed. It was held hostage. Blackmail, power politics. Leslie would not capitulate or accommodate or compromise. She held steadfast and finally prevailed. First time it failed, yeah, I'll do that. The first time it failed, she went around the legislature and went to the governor and persuaded him to fund an experimental program that basically benefited the University of Pikeville students. And you know, the more it worked, the more obvious it was that it was a great bill. After 2 years of demonstrating its benefits, the power brokers finally capitulated. But not until the 11th hour of the final day of the legislative session. It was truly a classic legislative battle and was won only because of Leslie Combs' tenacious determination. This program, permanently funded, will change the lives of hundreds of Eastern Kentuckians and fundamentally change the fabric of our society by allowing our students to get a quality bachelor's degree here in Eastern Kentucky at a price comparable to a state institution. It's unlikely that many of the students she's helped will fully understand all she's done for them. But I know, and now you know, and it's important that the institution never forgets. Leslie, on behalf of all the students you've helped, thank you. I now present to you Representative Leslie Combs.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor Patton, Board of Trustees, all you faculty that are just like family, all the staff, friends out here, but more importantly, you students. Let me tell you something. I truly appreciate that introduction, but I certainly could not have done that or accomplished it by myself. Many have helped achieving in that goal and many other goals. Let me, before I say anything else and go forward, it was so fun sitting back there in the back before we marched in and watching all the faculty come in and all the faculty that are still here, that were here when I was here before. And I've stood on this very podium in front of a group of people multiple times. And it happens to me every time. When I stand here, I look out across the room and I go, I'm home. I'm home. So. Before I begin my comments, and don't worry, the faculty have repeatedly, walking by me, marching in, said brief, 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 brief. Now, I don't want to scare anyone away. My comments are only 22 pages long, but that's because it's in 34 points, so I don't have to use these glasses. So don't get excited. But I do want to take one little personal privilege. John Holman, where are you? Happy birthday. Now, before I leave anybody else in the room out, does anybody else have a birthday today? Jackie? Happy birthday, Jackie Owens. Bill, you forgot to tell me that. Happy birthday to my good friend Jackie, and glad you all are here. So, see there, John, did you know you shared a birthday with Jackie? You do now. My comments today are mainly going to be centered around storytelling. And for you all who have been here for a while, you're going to remember some of these stories. You're going to be able to relate to them because you're going to know the people. To the students that are in the room, just kind of hang with me. You may not know the people, but I hope you enjoy some of the stories because they mean a lot to me, and they're about the fun times and the great experiences that I had here. But most importantly, what they're about love. You know, they're about telling the story of this institution and hopefully expressing a message to all of you about UPIKE. Now, I'm going to keep referring to it as Pikeville College through my comments, so y'all just get ready for it, okay? Well, what UPIKE means to me, and I hope to you, and in the case of the student body, what it will mean to you. These stories, I hope, illustrate love and caring, dedication, relationships, and most importantly, devotion. The primary message being, how can you give back in return for what has been granted or bestowed upon you? So like I said, I hope you find some of these stories of interest, and I hope in some cases funny. And while I'm going to refer to this as storytelling hour, faculty, I hope it doesn't take an hour. So, it all started back in 1984 when I married my husband, Don, who's here with me today. And he and I were we both graduated from Transylvania University, and he brought me back to Pikeville. Now, I always referred to myself as having been imported to Pikeville by Don, and I always use that phrase. Now, mind you, at Transy, there were a lot of folks from Eastern Kentucky that attended Transy. So by the time, he and I dated 6 years, so by the time I got to Pikeville, I already had a whole set of friends. So I felt like it was my second home. I felt like I had been raised here. But I'll tell you what, I went on for years and people would say, where are you from? And I'd tell them, and I would say that I was imported to Pikeville. And finally, after a couple of years, a gentleman that many of you all know, Berlin Coleman, looked at me and he said, Leslie, you can stop using that term that you've been imported. He said, you're one of us now. You've been here long enough. Well, that meant a lot to me coming from that gentleman. Well, after having been at the college for a year, I came here as controller. As soon as I got married, I went straight in as controller of Pikeville College. Well, then President Jackson Hole decided to retire, and they brought in another gentleman to be the interim president, and his name was William Owens, a professor at Center College. Well, William Owens is better known as Bill, and throughout some of these stories, I'll just refer to him as Bill, so you'll know what I'm talking about. But I thought, oh, no. Here this gentleman showed up one day, and the president's office used to be in the far back corner on the main level of the administration building, back where the governor has the remake of the governor's office. That's where the president's office used to be. And I went over there, and here was this gentleman standing there, and I stuck my hand out, and I said, hello, I'm Leslie Combs. You may not remember me, but I used to be Leslie Adams, and you were a physics professor of mine at Center. He was also a professor, just for the record book, of Tom Hess's at Center College. Well, anyway, you know, you would expect to get the typical response of, I'll go back and check the college annual, and yes, but he looked at me and said, yes, you look familiar. He said, I'll go back and check my grade book. Well, I tell you what, he was an excellent professor, and it was one of the few good grades I did make at Center College. So there. So I got by with that. Well, then we went on talking. And he said, now, where were you born and raised? So born and raised in Winchester, Kentucky. He said, now, you were in Adams. I said, yes, sir, I was. He said, let's see, I know a gentleman by the name of Harold Adams from Winchester. Do you know him? I said, yes, sir, he would be my uncle. He said, I've served with your uncle for years in the presbytery. So my point about this is, and this is what I will illustrate throughout the rest of my comment, is relationships, relationships, relationships. Right, Hal Smith? That is what it's all about. And that's my message for you students today. Every one that crosses your path is a relationship and can be now and in your future. Well, about a year went by after Bill got here, and they decided to take the interim off of his title, and they made him full-fledged president of Pikeville College. Well, I'll never forget, it was May trustee board meeting, and I was 7.5 months pregnant with my first child. Now, folks, I took pregnancy seriously. I felt that pregnancy was a license to eat, and I did. I wasn't just 7.5 months pregnant. I looked like I was 15 months pregnant. I was clear out to here. Well, so here I was, 7.5 months pregnant. We're getting ready to go into the full board meeting. Bill walks up to me and he says, "You ready to take the seat?" I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "You ready to take control? Because I'm ready to recommend you as the chief financial officer of this institution." I said, "Yes, sir. Let's go." And what I've always appreciated about that is that man took a woman who was 7.5 months pregnant, didn't know what in the heck was going to happen, and made her chief financial officer. And I've always appreciated him for having that faith and that confidence in me. Well, we made it through that board meeting. All was off and running, and we were working. Well, they told me that my daughter wasn't supposed to, this is mid-July, they told me she wasn't supposed to be born for another 2 weeks. I knew better, but nonetheless, they said, "You stay at home and sit still." Well, I left the office one afternoon, normal day, went home that night. About midnight, I started having pains. And I had my children in Lexington. My doctor was in Lexington, so my husband and I make the midnight ride to Lexington. And we show up down there about 5:30, and I have a baby at 9:30. And at 11:30, picked my phone up next to my hospital bedroom, and I called Bill. He said, "Where are you?" I said, "Well, I had a baby this morning." I said, "You did? How's everything?" "Fine." "What'd you have?" "Well, so we went through all the preliminaries you go through. And he said, "Well, what time are you going to be back at work?" I said, "Tell you what, Bill, give me just a couple of days, I'll be right back." And sure enough, it wasn't long. I was right back at work. Well, 3.5 years later, Ron Dameron, you'll remember this, and so will you, Jerry. I had the second child, and I didn't think you could get any bigger with second pregnancy, but I did. But anyway, we had that one on time, and everything worked out well. But as I'm sure you all still do today, every week we had executive staff meetings. Okay? Well, here I had a baby 1 week, and I don't think I missed that staff meeting, but anyway, the next week, I was kind of out because I had another baby. Bill called me up. He said, "We got executive staff this week." I said, "Well, Bill, I don't believe I can come into the office if you don't mind." He said, "Well, how about we just come to your house?" I said, "That'd be fine." So for the next couple of weeks, I took little Don, our son, I put him in a baby swinger, and he swung, and he was perfectly quiet and very attentive. And we had staff meetings in my kitchen. So that's what I remember. That was the dedication. That was the devotion. That's what we did. Let me tell you, my children grew up knowing Mama was synonymous with Pikeville College. Tell you some more stories about Bill and our involvement in this institution's involvement. When anything was going on back in those days, and I'm talking about the late 80s and through the 90s, if anything happened in this community, Pikeville College was involved with it. In fact, there for a while we were the community. Anything that was going on, we offered our physical plant staff, we offered our facilities, we offered everything. So one of the first events I can kind of remember that was funny, and this is college related because college personnel were all involved in helping doing it, but this is a community story. Jerry Kinder was executive director of the Chamber of Commerce. Bill, I think you were president at the time, or Reed Potter was one. But anyway, we had the big Pikeville cut-through dedication. Now, for you students, let me tell you something. The cut-through, right down here at the end of the road, you all don't know how famous that project was. That was an international project. Governor, correct me, I think that was probably the largest earth-moving project in the world. I mean, it was huge. It was huge. I always told Mayor Hamley it could never be done. But that was a monumental program and a project. And it was completed with success. So it was time to dedicate and do the official opening of the Pikeville cut-through. Well, Chamber of Commerce obviously was orchestrating it. Bill and I and Piper College, we were right in the middle of making sure everything got set up. And I remember it was during the final time, it was in October, I believe, but anyway, it was the final timing of Martha Lane Collins' governorship. And I knew some folks in the governor's office even then, that I remember I had to be in Frankfurt the week before we actually had the dedication. And I went down and talked to the chief of staff down there, and we were talking about this cut-through project and how it was going to work. And Governor Collins was coming up, and there were some issues at that point in time, some security issues that were affecting Governor Collins. So they were particularly concerned about protection and security forces and the state police being involved and where everything would be staged. So I was telling them about that. But also, part of my duties in that project was to make sure to do a parade full of convertibles. Well, let me tell you all what. I went searching. They said, Leslie, we want to do the parade, and we want them all in convertibles. Well, I went to a 50-mile radius, and I can't tell you how many convertibles I came up with, but we came up with a slew of them. Well, we had the parade all set up. We had the program all set up, and we were all getting ready to start. And it was the morning before the cut-through dedication program was supposed to take place, and all the roadways had been marked off, and state police had been assigned where they should be. And I'm standing not far down, right down from the college, right down the road. I was heading to the program site. Here comes the chief of police, Buster Esmond. And he pulls up beside of me. He gets out of the car. I said, hey, Buster, what's going on? He said, Leslie, we got a problem. I said, what's the problem, Buster? And he said, Leslie, you've been working with the state police on the road plan, on the plan to how we're going to move the parade and we're going to move people in and out for the cut-through dedication? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, you need to know something. I said, what, Buster? He said, the directions you've given the state police have cut traffic flow to the city of Pikeville. No one can get out of town, and nobody can get in town. And I said, do tell. He said, yes. And I said, okay, well, let's fix it. He said, well, that's why I'm here, Leslie. He said, you apparently met with the state police, and they've talked to you, and they've said nobody can move till Leslie Combs tells them to. I said, well, I just kind of folded my hands, and I went, okay. I savored that for just a minute. So anyway, I then looked at Buster. I said, Buster, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I said, now, Buster, you're the chief of police for the city of Pikeville, so you tell me how we need to do this. And he did. And I said, all right. Now, you get on that radio, and you call that state trooper, the one that's in charge, get him on that speaker with me. So he got him on the radio, and he said, I've got Leslie Combs. And I got on there, and I told that trooper, I said, now, here's how we're going to change traffic flow. He said, thank you, ma'am. We'll get right on it. So that was part of, but Pikeville College, we were all right there in the middle of that. Now, I'm going to tell you a funny one. This is probably a story I shouldn't tell. I'm going to tell it anyway, because it's the joke's on me, okay? Governor, long before there was ever the vision of the Expo Center. Now, it might have been a vision you'd had for years, but nobody else had had the vision of the Expo Center, nor did we ever dream we would have one. So every large event that took place down at the Pikeville College Gymnasium. If you had room and you needed 2,500 people, that's where you put them. And as usual, we always opened our doors to whoever needed to use it. We opened our doors to them. They were welcome to use it. Our staff were available to help them. Physical plant set it up, took it down, took care of everything. If you needed a facility, Pikeville College was there. Well, during Hillbilly Days, the Shriners would always rent the gym out for the week, for the whole week. Now, I always knew they had a good time down there. As long as I didn't hear about any trouble or any problems, I didn't worry about it. But anyway, our physical plant staff folks would always go down, and they'd make sure everything was taken care of, and they'd make sure there was no trouble, and everything was in order, and trash was picked up, and that sort of thing. So it was like on a Thursday or Friday, because it was right in the middle of full-blown Hillbilly Days, and those Shriners had been down there all week. One of my physical plant staff folks came to my office, and that's when I was in the far back corner on the right side over there. of the main administration building, I think where you've got admissions and financial aid now, maybe, but we always joked around with each other. Staff and I, we always had a good time with one another. And so one of the fiscal staff members came to my office, and they had a mason jar with clear liquid, obviously, in it. And they brought it in and set it down on my desk and said, "It's brought you a present from down at the gym." And I said, "Thank you." Now, just call me naive, call me stupid. I didn't think he seriously brought me the real McCoy, okay? So anyway, that jar's sitting there on my desk, and I laughed with him. I said, "That's a good joke. Thank you very much. I appreciate it." I thought he was just pulling my leg, and they just filled up a mason jar. So I took that mason jar and stuck it in the credenza next to my desk. Forgot it was ever there. Sometime later, I was on a phone call in my office one day. I can't remember who I was talking to, and God bless him. Because I was sitting there, and rudely so, I was talking to them, and I was eating a candy bar. I remember it was a Reese cup. And you know how all of a sudden when something goes down wrong, and you start getting choked, and you can't talk, and you're trying to talk to somebody? You know where this headed, don't you? So anyway, I set that phone down. I said, excuse me, just excuse me. And I set the phone down, and I reached in that credenza, and I grabbed that mason jar. And I took that lid off, and just like you would want to throw back a big gulp of water to clear your throat, I threw that down. Well, folks, let me tell you something. After my eyes got through popping off and my ears came off the side of my head, and I literally, I don't know how you could double choke, but I did. It burned the heck going down, and then what I had left in my mouth spewed clear across my office. And I yelled, and my office staff came in and said, "What's wrong?" And I sit there going, that's not water. And they looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" So anyway, like I said, I don't know whatever happened to that telephone conversation, whether they hung up or I finished it or what. But anyway, at the conclusion of that, I called that particular person in physical plant, and I said, "Thank you for that present you gave me a couple of months ago." And he said, "What?" He said, "You mean you didn't know?" I said, "No, I didn't know. I thought you were just pulling my leg." So anyway, now I'll tell you about another time we had during Christmas break. All right. Now, Bill always thought he was a construction manager or a builder anyway, and he wouldn't let you spend a dime. But we had decided that we needed to rearrange the offices, and we needed to put various different offices in different places. So we decided over Christmas break, that 3 or 4 week period, we were going to make major renovations to the administration building. We were going to do it ourselves. But the point was, we didn't have really enough physical plant staff people and personnel to do it, and we didn't want to go out and hire any construction workers, so Bill got this bright idea. He'd learned about you could go down to the county jail and get county jail inmates, and they would come up. Well, we asked the sheriff's office if we could do it, and they said, "Yes, you can." So we went down, and they sent us up. We'd send the van down, physical plant staff would go down and check them out, bring them up. Now, here's what we'd do. We'd feed them this huge. We'd take them over to Airmark. Sherry Morris's husband, Terry, ran Airmark at that time. We'd bring them over and feed them breakfast early in the morning. They could all they could eat. And we'd work them through the day. And I'd take a few. I'd be responsible for a few. Jerry Kinder would be responsible for a few. Ron would be responsible for a few. Physical plant, we all were assigned our county inmates to put them to work. And I mean, we took walls down, we put walls up, we took doors down, we put doors up, we painted, we reconstructed that whole building. Well, they'd work through the morning, then we'd send them over to lunch, and they could eat all they wanted for lunch. And then they'd come back, and they'd work all afternoon before we took them back to the county jail. We'd feed them dinner, eat all they want before they went back down there. Well, the next thing you knew, we had them begging from the county jail to come up here and work because it was too good. So we got through that Christmas break, we got through those renovations, well, we found out they were pretty good workers. So we selected a handful of them to keep them around, and we kept them around for the next several months, helping us work and fix things at no cost, basically just expensive materials. And in fact, a couple of them we had some great relationships with and realized that they wanted to turn their life around. And actually during that time period, we taught them a computer course because they said they would be interested in learning. So we taught them. Now, after a couple of months of this went by, I can't imagine, Governor, I think there was some statutory legislation of some sort that was on the books. I can't imagine legislators doing that. But anyway, there was a little glitch or a loophole in that a private institution couldn't use those county inmates. So our program changed. But there for a while, that was a great opportunity for us. We learned from them. They learned from us. And it showed us, too, what those folks can do, what they're capable of doing, and how that we, as an institution, can help folks like that. Now I want to talk about a part of my era that was probably one of the greatest moments in the history of this institution, and that's the creation of the medical school. I consider this as one of the greatest accomplishments in my professional career for whatever part I played in it. Right next to this accomplishment would be, Governor, passing the Cole County Scholarship legislation and helping to write and pass the legislation that would complete the 4-laning of the Mountain Parkway. See how long I've gone here, boys? I ain't going into storytelling now. You want me to stop? Because now I'm getting into the fun part, Bets. The med school, a lot of people don't realize how that med school came about. That med school, I mean, I guess it was a series of opportunities and taking place of opportunities, and you never know when opportunities are going to pass by you. You know, that med school was the idea of a gentleman by the name of Chad Perry down in Johnson County, who wanted that med school in Paintsville. And after much work on his part, sweat and tears, they realized that financially and from an infrastructure standpoint, they could not accomplish that in Paintsville. So out of the blue, like snap of your fingers one weekend, there was a meeting. Governor Patton, I think you were in on that meeting. Senator Benny Ray Bailey, Berlin Coleman, Bill Owens, I think Chad Perry was in it as well, had a meeting and said, we want to bring this concept and this idea. And they already had the pre-accreditation people coming down to Eastern Kentucky to meet. We want to put that school at Pikeville College. Well, that meeting took place on a Saturday, and I remember it was a Sunday afternoon, and I was out playing golf with my husband, minding my own business, and trying to put it in time perspective. Alan, you'll appreciate this. It was during the days of the bag phone. I told you I stopped. Cell phone, because they've been my life. I had the first bag phone. And that bag phone was stuck right there in the front of that golf cart, and it rang. And it was Bill. And he said, what are you doing? I'm playing golf. He said, well, I'm just calling to tell you when you get in the morning, get ready because you're going to be writing a budget for a med school. I said, do what? He said, yeah. I said, Bill, I don't know anything about doing a budget for a med school. He said, well, guess what? You're going to get on the fast pace because you're going to learn. I said, all right. Well, I didn't really take him seriously. Went on about my business. Sure enough, coming in at 8 o'clock the next morning, I walked in his office. I said, now, what's this? He said, girl, we got to get to work here. Because he said, we got to do a budget. These people are coming in to talk to us in the middle of the week. Well, I took what documents and information the group had already put together for what they were going to do down in Johnson County. We kind of put something together, and it was enough to convince the folks that came down on behalf of the AOA that we should continue to pursue this option. Well, after we got through to that, and we convinced them we were going to do it, Bill, I don't know if he made the phone call or got the phone call, but you know, there's an osteopathic school up there in Logan, West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine. The president or the dean, whatever that individual was referred to up there, called us up one day. He said, if you'll come to West Virginia, he said, you bring all your counterparts, meaning development, student affairs, financial aid, business office, bring all your counterparts up here, and I will match them up with our counterparts, and we will help you and assist you with what you need to start a medical school. Well, off we all loaded up and went to West Virginia for that meeting. Now, this is real important, the point I want to make here, because this goes beyond just us starting a med school in West Virginia helping us. This is what it's all about, and this is how it's supposed to work everywhere. This is how it should be working today. They sat down with us, Bill and the president of the West Virginia School sat up there, and our group was this way, and we were facing our counterparts across the room. And the head of that institution said, "Now, I'll tell you what," and he kind of drew an arbitrary line in the air. He said, "Now, here's the boundary line. You're over here, and you're over there. You all stay over there, and we'll stay over here. You grab your students from there, we'll grab them from here, and we'll teach you and tell you everything you need to know about starting a medical school." Is that a deal? Folks, that's how we ought to be doing it at the local level, the state level, and the federal level right now. It's that kind of compromise. It's that kind of understanding, and it's that kind of agreement. Because thank you to that gave us the opportunity that we needed to have what we have today and be the success we are with our osteopathic medical school. So I'm forever grateful for that. And the woman that was my counterpart, CFO over there in West Virginia, literally, once we all agreed, we broke up from that meeting. She took me in the business office. She looked at her business office staff. She said, "Give this lady anything she asked for." They opened their books up. They actually gave me copies of their stuff for me to take home. And she was available from that point on for me to answer questions or to ask questions. She'd answer them for me. And I'll tell you what, I was able to take that information from that West Virginia school, even though they were much larger than what we were going to be. But I knew what pieces of the puzzle I needed. I knew what operating items I needed. I knew what faculty salaries and how many faculty we needed to have for what. I knew all the pieces of the puzzle. And that's because they helped us do that. So without them, I'm not sure we could have done it. And I'll tell you another funny story, how it's a small, small world. We needed 2 letters to go to the AOA to agree 2 other osteopathic schools, because they had cut off, just like they have an optometry governor, they cut off any new schools. So we got 2 letters, one from the West Virginia school, and then we got one from the Ohio school. Now here's the funny part about that. The dean of the Ohio school, how many of you, students may not remember, but I'll guarantee you still listen to the music. How many of you all, I know, Diana Ross in the Springs? Do you want to know who was dean of the Ohio school? Diana Ross's sister. Now, how's that for a small world? So we got those 2 letters. And I'll tell you something else. I can't go this day without saying, too, that med school could not have been possible as well without the help of our governor, Paul Patton. He and Senator Benny Ray Bailey went before the AOA accreditation team, and they made their case for why we needed an osteopathic medical school. And I do believe that's the first time, I know in that particular case with AOA, that was the first time the state governor had ever been before them. And I'd say probably not too many other accreditations have they had governors come before them. So had that not happened, I'm not sure we would have been that successful. So the governor certainly played a major role in making sure that happened. And in addition, we had to make all kinds of renovations to Armington, to the Lara Library, down at the Technology Center. We didn't have the money. We needed the money because of Governor Patton and making sure that we had funds in place. We were able to make the renovations necessary to meet what the AOA accreditation requirements were without any debt to the institution. In fact, I'll tell you something. In the mid-1990s, something I'm proud of is we were within, in fact, we were just below $10 million in debt, and we had a plan to be debt-free at that point in time. So after the med school was underway, the success story was told and was working on its own, Bill Owens decided to retire. And then, lo and behold, remember what I said about relationships? This is almost like watching your life pass before your eyes twice. They decided to bring in a new president, President Harold Hal Smith. Guess what, guys? He was the dean of students when I was at Center College. So, now, what was fun about that was we just started med school, so you thought we could do anything. Then came football. Now, I'm going to tell you what. Doing a budget for a med school was pretty difficult, but I'll tell you what, doing a budget for a football, that was certainly different. So, but we succeeded, and it is still succeeding today. One of the most wonderful things I remember about the joys of working at this institution were the people. Many of you all have already acknowledged are here in this room today. I see so many of you. I always worked with them. They never worked for me. That was a philosophy that I always had, and I always have to this day. Look, we had the business office, physical plant, security, and IT. I had all of those areas to oversee. And I'll tell you what, we had great teams in each and every one of them. We had a great crew, and we worked together. And I think for the most part, now there were some tough days, but we had a good time working together. Doug Lange, being CFO, you know that in that position, you have to know all the pieces of the institution. You have to know how it all works. You have to understand development appeal. You have to understand admissions and financial aid. You've got to understand academic affairs. You've got to understand student affairs. You've got to understand every operation in the institution because you've got to do the financial accounting for it. You've got to make it all work. So you've got to understand it. But like I said, being here for 23 years, I must say is probably the best 23 years of my life. And, excuse me, anybody got that clear liquid sitting there somewhere? You know, things are no different today than they were then. There were days you thought the world was coming to an end, and surely we could survive whatever it is, whatever issue it was. Guess what we did? We are, and we will. Because that's how important this institution, Pipewood College, now UPIKE, has accomplished far more, just like the governor said, than many of the institutions across this state. And once again, we are doing another monumental first. The state's first and only school of optometry. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude with this message from the bottom of my heart. This institution is a miracle for me. It's an institute, it's a miracle for you. It is for this community, and it is our region. And now, it's a miracle for our state. This institution's future depends on you, depends on me. It depends on all of us giving back in some way and taking care of it for an eternity. I have always been and will continue to be committed. Once again, Governor Patton, and to the board, to the faculty, thank you for bestowing this honor upon me. But it's not about me. It's about everybody who cares for this place. Thank you.
Leslie, if you would come forward. Dr. Hess. Leslie Combs, for your outstanding and significant achievements, for your special interest and leadership in improving educational opportunities for our students, and for your lifetime efforts to demonstrate through ideas and deeds the humanity of all peoples, no matter their station or lot in life. By the authority vested in me by the Board of the Trustees of the University of Pikeville, I hereby confer upon you the honorary doctor degree, Doctor of Public Service.